very good question why I signed it. For me, it's also a question how can I not sign it? Because for a certain extent, I'm supposed to be a sender of this letter, but also I'm supposed to be a receiver of this letter. Because I was grown up in Russia, I was serving different, as you heard in the beginning, differently for the Russian Orthodox Church. And I lived in Russia for 40 years, and then I was almost, I would say, I left voluntary, but if I would stay, I would be in prison. And if now I just realized Father Manfred 3 times was in Russia since the war begins. It's infinite time more than I, because I've been there no time since the war started, and if I go there now, I will be imprisoned because I'm kind of enemy of nation or something like this. And for this, I would stay with those who are in Russia and who are not willing that all what is happening. But in the meantime, I feel enormous shame, because it happens very often that people come first time to Russia in the past, and they say, oh, we heard so much thing about Russians, that they're so nasty, so bad guys, okay, they're so positive, they're so fun, they're so interesting, you guys are very interesting, everything is good. And that was my thought as well before the war starts. And it was basically, for me the war starts in 2014, because when I've seen these nice guys around me, all excited about the annexion of Crimea and all excited about this occupation of eastern part of Ukraine, I was shocked, and I realized that I will not survive there for long. So for me, it's to a certain extent I'm a receiver of this email, of this letter. From another extent, I'm a sender because I live in Germany. My origin is Polish, so I'm very ashamed being Dunin Barkowski. Probably, you know, it's from Peter Wurst, so the helper of Władysław Krzywousty, so it's a very ancient Polish family, and I have a lot of friends and relatives in Poland. And so it is addressed from Polish and German Christians, so I'm considering myself as Polish-German Christian. And also Dunin Barkowski, Dunin Barkowski was one of the atamans in Ukraine in 17th century, so there's a lot of connection in history. But the sending of this letter for me was absolutely not a question, so I was realizing that once this initiative appears, it fits very well with what we were doing with Father Andrei, and it definitely was an initiative which we immediately realized that we need to join. But I was trying to reflect like why we should write this letter, and I totally agree with Father Manfred. We cannot just stay and observe, we need to do something. And sometimes when you don't need what to do, and God is silent, maybe you don't get an answer right away, so you do what you can do. And this is the minimum what you can do. Join those who know what to do, and then together with them, try to convince, try to do something. And we have a very dramatic, but also, I think, example which I'm sure none of you know, and it happens when Navalny was killed in prison. I think you know who is Navalny. So it's an oppositioner who returned to Russia, was imprisoned and then killed in prison. And then I know very well Navalny family and his team, and his deputy, Mr. Volkov, called me and said, Valerian, they're not giving us the body to make it buried, to make a funeral. We have no political way to put any pressure of Russian government, because they're just not giving the body to the mother. But you, priests or whoever you are, do something about it. Can you do something? And then we did something. We created a letter, and in this letter it was saying that even Pontius Pilatus gave the body to mother. How dare you not to give body to mother? Do not do that. It is even worse than those who were persecuted Christ. And there was several thousand of signatures, and a lot of priests also signed. And then the miracle happens. They gave the body. And mother of Navalny was able to make a funeral, and the authorities did not allow anything except church procedure. So they followed what was written in this letter. So what I want to say to you is that miracles are happening, and we don't know which word would finally touch someone's heart, and we don't know which word would suddenly push some, maybe make some domino effect or whatsoever, but we need to do something, and maybe the miracle would happen, and maybe something would happen that will push someone, and then the process will start, and then peace will come back. So that is the reason why we need to write it. The second is to whom we are writing. And of course, there is an obvious answer. Yes, we need to write it to someone who is supporting the war and calling themselves Christians, and this is of course a big shame. But we have another audience as well. And this audience are Christians in Russia who are absolutely ashamed, but who are absolutely destroyed by the fact that their brothers and sisters in Christ, they are supporting this aggression, they're supporting this war. And by looking at this letter, they realize that they are not alone, and they have real brothers and sisters in Christ who expressing what they wanted to say to their brothers in Russia and sisters. So it's also for them very important to hear that voice, because this voice is also somehow helping them to express themselves and helping them to reach the hearts of their those who are nearby. And this is for me also very important, that these people who are trying to stand against the war, of course, many of them are already in prison or they are shut down. There's still people who are just not able to follow the overall craziness of what's going on around them, and they want to still get their voice heard. And those who are supporting the war in the Russian Orthodox Church, those who are calling themselves Christians, they maybe need to hear something else than official propaganda. They maybe need to hear something that is bringing back there's understanding that you cannot call yourself Christian and support that aggression. This is completely contradictory, and this is completely not that something should happen. But as Father Manfred already quoted Archpriest Sviatoslav Shevchik, in order to have a dialogue, you need to have two parts. In order to talk to each other should recognize existence of each other. So if they should understand that we exist, Christians in Russia, or those who are considering themselves Christians in Russia, very often they live somewhere in the countryside. They only hear something from official media. They're not too much going around and understanding what's really going on. But they are being said that here on the West, there are only sinners, there are only childs of Satan, There's only crazy things going on, and there is no Christianity, and Russia is the Messiah who should bring Christianity to the whole world. It sounds very funny and strange in this audience, but believe me, I know a lot of people who are thinking like that, and who don't understand that it is the other way around. For me, one of the biggest shock when I went from Moscow to Germany, that how many people are going to church, and I'm not the guy who's not seeing everything around. Yeah, I've been many times in various countries, but still, when I started in Germany, I was surprised how more people who are active Christians are there in Germany compared to Russia. But Russia is still considering themselves something different. So they need to understand that we exist, Christians in Europe. It's strange to sound, but they need to understand that yes, Christianity is a different voice, not only the one of Patriarch Kirill or whoever is there. And there is also for them a possibility to find someone who thinks differently in Russian. And here I want to just say a few words about Popushistkin, about Yersian, because in the beginning of the war, many priests, many Orthodox priests, they were signing a petition with 300 priests who signed a petition against the war, who were actively protesting against this military direction in the Russian church. And there were really a big pushback from the community. And then they were repressed one by one. If you look at this list now, the list of priests who originally signed that petition, you will realize that some of them already emigrated, some of them left the church completely, or some of them being repressed. And when the priest after 20, 30 years of service is being abandoned from church, it means that basically the family is starving, they have nothing to survive. And that is where we started the project Yersian, Popushistkin, where we try to support those clergies which are against the war and who tried to keep the peaceful peacemaker spirit in the Russian society. In general, we help around 50 clergymen. It's maybe not too much. Some of them just said we don't need the help because we survived ourselves. Some of them managed to get some civil profession. A lot of priests become a houseman, housekeepers. Thank you. Housekeepers, while their matushkas, their wives start to work very intensively to keep the big family. And basically we still have people to support. We opened a real disastrous area of the, I would say it's a gray area, it's priests on the occupied territory, because some of the priests of the territory which is now controlled by Russia, some of them unfortunately start to collaborate with the Russian authorities and Russian church, but some of them stand against them and they're in a real danger. Some of them are said that even you, if you ever try to do any service, even when one person will be immediately imprisoned or killed. This is the way how Christianity is kept on the territories controlled by Russia. You cannot imagine how many dramatic stories we hear every day, because we get definitely a lot of context and people coming to us with different stories. But the way how Christians are surviving in Russia, I would answer to the question from Father Manfred. It is, if you are really a real Christian, and so you're not supporting the war, your life is into constant danger. We had one altar servant, ministrant, who just was going to the service, keeping all the sacrificed equipment for the service, bringing with him, and then he was arrested by police. They recognized he has an Ukrainian surname, and they decided to put him to jail. And after several months, they realized that they wanted to build up a process against him, that he's a terrorist and he wanted to explode a bomb to kill his bishop. It was totally made out of nothing, so it was absolutely fake story, but now still the guy and his friend was arrested later on. They are in prison, so they're just clergymen, ministrants, just serving in a church, but unlikely having Ukrainian surnames, and now they are in prison because they express their opinions about the war. So it's, as I say, there are people who are calling themselves Christians but supporting the war. With them, we probably need to talk. We need to understand that they exist. We probably need to understand how to find a way to touch their hearts. And there are people who are really struggling a lot in Russia, who are really in danger because of their anti-war position, peacemaker position. And for them, I would say we need to give a helping hand and support. And I was also very happy to hear from Elena Babakova earlier today that there are people who are trying to protect human rights, and there are people who are trying to help those in danger, including those Christians who are serving, for example, in Russian prisons where there are a lot of Ukrainian soldiers captured, or just simple people captured, Ukrainian people captured by Russian army. They are trying to help them there. They are trying to help evacuate people from occupied territories. So there are really Christians who are bringing their Christian service without promoting it too much, and probably we even don't know too much about them because they're afraid to talk openly about their activities, but we still can find this way forward. And I would like to end this answer with a little example. And this example is actually the parish where I'm serving in Düsseldorf, which consists of, I would say, 70% Ukrainians, 30% Russians, but of 3 priests who are there. They are all Russians. And we are all sharing the common vision of what's going on. We are all sharing a common belief. And we are, at least as much as we can, considering ourselves Christians who are finding a way to peace. So I hope that those Ukrainians who are coming to our parish, they are forgiving us, or maybe we're not directly involved in aggression, but we still somehow did not prevent it to happen. And in the meantime, those Russians who are going to our parish in Düsseldorf, they also find a way to support their brothers and sisters from Ukraine who are struggling every day from that war, whose relatives are serving in the Ukrainian army or just being bombed every night. So for us, it is probably an example how we can find this way to peace and forgiveness.